Hello friends, welcome to Unacademy Let's Crack NEET PG. I'm Dr. Shonali Chandra, and in this video I will be speaking about the diagnosis of diabetes in pregnancy. I have highlighted my reference code here, that is SHONALI Shonali, and you can use this code to avail a 10% discount when you take an Unacademy subscription. I've also highlighted my Telegram link. So at the end of the discussions, if you have any doubts and queries still left, you can always contact me on this link provided. Unacademy, my friends, is India's largest learning platform. If you get a subscription, a plus subscription, you get access to unlimited live and recorded sessions from India's best educators. You will get daily live classes where you can chat with your educator, ask your doubts and queries, and get them solved there and then. So it's like a live classroom experience. The courses are structured keeping in line with the exam syllabus, that is the NEET postgrad entrance exam. There are live tests and quizzes which you can undertake to help you evaluate your performance, and they are there on the platform as well. And most importantly, there is unlimited access. So one subscription lets you see all the live sessions from all the faculties, right? And even if you miss out on the live sessions, you can always watch the recorded versions from the comfort of your own devices. There are top educators who are associated with the platform, like Dr. Nikita Nanwani for radiology, Dr. Mohammad Azam, Dr. Preeti Sharma, Dr. Devesh Mishra sir for pathology. And various courses are offered on the platform. All 19 subjects are covered, and every now and then, comprehensive batch courses as well as concise short duration crash courses, they keep getting launched. So you can check out the ongoing courses in the platform as well. And as far as the subscription packages go, we have short duration packages like 3-month and 6-month duration, as well as long duration packages like 12 and 24 months. So if you ask me, for those of you who are targeting the next year exams like the mid-year AIMS, PGI, JIPMER, NIMHANS, then you can take the 12-month subscription because it will give you ample time to go through all the sessions, and at the end leave you good enough time to revise as well. And it turns out to be far more economical in the long run, just rupees 2,083 per month. And for those of you who want a slower pace of preparation, because you cannot put in a great many hours in a single day, of simply because let's say you're in the third year or final year and you decided to take a slower pace of preparation, and obviously you are also attending the classes and schedules and clinics and hospital duties, so you can take the 24-month subscription. It turns out to be far more economical in the longer run, just rupees 1250 per month. And if you subscribe to the platform using my code, that is SHONALI, then you will get a 10% discount on your subscription as well. So coming to the topic at hand, which is diagnosis of diabetes in pregnancy. Now there's a lot of controversy about how diabetes in pregnancy needs to be identified. I say there's a controversy. Why? Because there are many guidelines. There are many guidelines. There are Government of India guidelines. There are American guidelines. There are some international guidelines. Then there are WHO guidelines, right? So many people have given a lot of opinion on how diagnosis of diabetes in pregnancy should be done. And the basic difference is that people tend to, we people tend to use the guidelines which suits us. And the WHO has also clearly said that these are the in general guidelines, and the various countries can choose to, implement these guidelines according to the baseline level of the prevalence of diabetes in pregnancy, right? So when we talk about India, we have a population which is going towards climbing the ladder of obesity. We have a population in which the incidence of diabetes even outside of pregnancy is rising. And we have a population which is inherently, ethnically more predisposed to insulin resistance. So when we screen our women, we screen them slightly differently from what the American guidelines refer to. So it is important to appreciate that fact and that change. So I'm going to talk about that. So in this session, we will talk about what are the different types of diabetes, mainly gestational and pre-gestational. Then we're going to talk about the screening, how it is supposed to be done, what are the tests that are supposed to be used, and ultimately, how are we going to differentiate gestational diabetes from an overt diabetes in pregnancy. So broadly, I'm going to talk about these three things. But before I move on to that, let us just appreciate how carbohydrate metabolism in pregnancy changes. How does the mother adjust to the pregnancy, especially in terms of carbohydrate metabolism? Well, look at the figure on the insert here and try to appreciate the fact that the fetus is totally dependent on the mother for his or her glucose requirements, right? So the fetus is going to extract most of the glucose from the mother, from the placenta, right? So whatever changes that happen in the mother's body are happening because the mother wants to ensure that her fetus always gets glucose, to ensure a continuous supply of glucose to the fetus. And in preparation for that, the mother is also laying down the fat stores. So fat deposition happens, in the body, here, under the breast, everywhere. The fat deposition is also happening, and especially it is limited to the first 2 trimesters. So all this fat deposition is happening, and mother wants to ensure that the fetus gets a continuous supply of glucose. Now the mother has to use glucose for her own energy requirements as well. So there is a conflict here. So mother wants glucose, baby wants glucose, but ultimately priority to the baby, right? So to ensure that the baby gets continuous supply of glucose in pregnancy, what happens is that insulin resistance increases, right? Now insulin is a hormone which is responsible for moving the glucose from the bloodstream to the cells for use. Right? Now, if insulin resistance is going to increase, then the glucose that is absorbed from diet will not be able to move into the cells of the mother for use. And that's okay, that's important, that is necessary. And various hormones are contributing to this insulin resistance. Most importantly, the hormone that is coming that from the placenta, that is human placental lactogen. And it does not act alone in causing this insulin resistance. There is estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, prolactin. All of these hormones together are also contributing to insulin resistance. And this insulin resistance reaches maximum at around 24 weeks of gestation. Now, I told you that because of insulin resistance, the glucose from the bloodstream cannot move into the maternal cells. Instead, it is going to cause what we call as postprandial hyperglycemia. This is okay, this is important, because then the glucose gets diverted to the fetus. Right? So some of the glucose is used by the woman, but most of the glucose, postprandial hyperglycemia, causes diversion of glucose towards the fetus via the placenta. Now, what will happen overnight? Overnight, the woman is not eating anything. Woman is sleeping, fasting, but it's not like the baby is sleeping at the same time. The baby still needs glucose from the mother's system. So the fetus is still extracting glucose. The fetus overnight is still extracting glucose from the maternal blood, and that creates fasting hypoglycemia. Now, these are normal physiological changes in pregnancy: postprandial hyperglycemia and fasting hypoglycemia, right? And normally in pregnancy, normal glucose levels, blood glucose levels, are going to be maintained on an average. So even if it's hyperglycemia, it's not like it is crossing the diabetic threshold. But for a woman who already has insulin resistance, who is already prone for diabetes, in her, this hyperglycemia can become excessive. In her, there can be fasting hyperglycemia instead of hypoglycemia. And then she will manifest with diabetes in pregnancy. Okay? And what happens because of this insulin resistance? It also contributes to hyperinsulinemia. This insulin resistance is also contributing to increased synthesis of insulin, increased synthesis of insulin from the maternal pancreas, and that leads to increase in triglycerides, and that leads to increased fat deposition in the maternal body, and that is happening especially in the first 2 trimesters. So these fat stores are laid down, and that is very, very important, because in the late 3rd trimester onwards, now the baby is larger, the baby is bigger, has more energy requirements, needs more of glucose, and more is the need for diverting glucose for the fetus. So what will happen now? The mother is going to divert most of her glucose towards the fetus. So what will mother use for her own energy requirements? Fatty acids, right? So late in the 3rd trimester onwards, the lipolysis from these fat stores which were deposited earlier, lipolysis is going to get increased, and free fatty acids are going to be released, and these free fatty acids are going to be used by the mother for her own energy needs, and glucose, in the other hand, will get diverted towards the fetus. So these are, in a nutshell, the carbohydrate change, metabolic changes which are brought about in a woman during pregnancy. Now, we can figure out from this description what are the risk factors for developing diabetes in pregnancy. So obesity itself, strong family history, ethnicity, Indian population again prone to diabetes, previous history of gestational diabetes mellitus, glucosuria in pregnancy, previous history of a large baby, stillbirth or difficult delivery. These are the pointers or the risk factors for developing diabetes in pregnancy. Now, the diabetes in pregnancy is of 2 types broadly: gestational diabetes, or overt diabetes, or pregestational diabetes. Now, gestational diabetes is the diabetes that is first diagnosed during pregnancy. Now, what happens is you and I, most of us, are not generally getting ourselves tested for blood sugar levels unless we feel that there is a need or we are symptomatic, right? And pregnancy is a time when most of the women get tested blood sugar levels. So most of the times the diagnosis of diabetes is happening for the first time in pregnancy, and then that is labeled as gestational diabetes, and usually it develops after 24 weeks, after the insulin resistant changes have peaked. But when you talk about overt diabetes or pregestational diabetes, that means a diabetic woman who went on to become pregnant. Now, it doesn't matter, this could be the type 1 diabetes or this could be the type 2 diabetes. So with other kind of diabetes, any kind of diabetes it could be, but it is pregestational, right? So abnormal glucose levels in that condition, in that situation, are there right from the periconceptual period itself, right? So what happens is that her sugar levels, they could be deranged during the time of conception, especially during the first trimester. So her sugar levels are deranged around the time of conception, even before conceiving, even throughout the first 3 months of pregnancy, and then she becomes at increased risk of abortions and congenital malformations. So abortions and congenital malformations complicate an overt diabetes or pregestational diabetes, but these complications are not seen with a gestational diabetes usually. Now, next important thing is, now that we recognize that there are 2 types of diabetes, gestational and pregestational, okay, the question is, whom should we screen? Now, we have highlighted the various risk factors for developing gestational diabetes mellitus. So when you read the standard textbooks like Williams Obstetrics, and when you read the international guidelines and the one of the accepted guidelines at the American College of Gynecologists guidelines, so ACOG guidelines are there. So they are not screening every woman for diabetes mellitus. I want to emphasize on that point here. So they are not screening all pregnant ladies with for diabetes mellitus, because for them, in their population, the baseline incidence of insulin resistance is not that high. So they don't want to screen everybody. They follow high risk screening. But in India, on the other hand, we are ethnically more predisposed to diabetes mellitus. In our pregnant women, there are more chances of them getting gestational diabetes mellitus. And the other thing that we also tend to see is that many times women are not aware that they are diabetic, and they tend to be tested only during pregnancy, and that is when the diagnosis of diabetes is made for the first time, right? And then it becomes difficult to tell whether it is pre-gestational or whether it is gestational. So in India, we tend to screen all pregnant women for diabetes. So when you are asked in our exams, in the NEET PG examination, who are the women who are screened for pregnancy, for the gestational diabetes or diabetes in pregnancy, the answer is all pregnant women. Okay, we do not follow selective or high risk screening. Universal screening is what we follow. The next question is when to screen. Now, if you again compare from the textbook, the American textbooks and the Williams textbooks, you will see that they are testing at 24 weeks. They are testing at 24 weeks when the chances of finding the gestational diabetes are more there. But in our women, we have to screen them as soon as possible in the first visit itself, right? Because our pregnant women tend to be more at risk of diabetes. So we tend to screen in the first antenatal visit itself. Very, very important point of differentiation here. We should be screening in the first antenatal visit itself. And if it comes out to be normal, if the screening comes out to be normal in the first visit, then we will repeat the screening between 24 to 28 weeks again. So this is the screening protocol which is given by the Government of India guidelines. Please remember that we screen all pregnant women. We follow universal screening. In the first visit itself, if the diagnosis of GDM is made, management is started. If it's normal, then we repeat the screening between 24 to 28 weeks again. Now, the next question that arises is, what are the various screening tests? Now, again, there are two types of screening protocols that we tend to read in books. There's a one-step screening protocol and there's a two-step screening protocol. Again, if you're following the Williams textbook, you will find this two-step screening protocol, which is supported by the American guidelines, right? So according to this two-step protocol, they would first screen. If it is screened positive, then they would go ahead and confirm the diagnosis. So they did a glucose challenge test with 50 gram oral glucose load irrespective of the meal, tested after 1 hour, and after 1 hour, if the blood sugar level is more than 140 milligram per deciliter, they would consider it as screen positive, and then perform a 100 gram glucose load, tolerance test called as GTT with 100 gram glucose load, and then they would use these values, that is a fasting value, and then a 1 hour post load value, 2 hour value, and 3 hour value for blood sugars. And if these thresholds are crossed, then they would diagnose it as GDM. But I'm not going to go into details with this two-step technique. What I'm going to focus here is on the one-step technique, which is given or which is adopted by the Government of India. We are following the one-step technique because most of our women, most of our pregnant ladies are also in the villages, in the centers where they cannot come for a two-step test, where they stand in lines, OPD lines from the morning, and then their number comes in the daytime. You can't expect them to be fasting there, right? And then they've come for a visit from far away, and then you will tell them that this is a test, it needs to be done fasting, come tomorrow, come 2 days later. She might not turn back, right? So keeping those things in mind, the Government of India has formulated the one-step technique, which is given by the DIPSI guidelines. So if you have come across this word, DIPSI guidelines, that was the organization which was the Diabetes in Pregnancy Study Group of India. They laid down guidelines, and these were adopted by the Government of India to develop a one-step screening protocol. And it is done irrespective of fasting status. All right, the woman need not be fasting for the screening test. 75 gram oral glucose tolerance test is done. All right, so woman is supposed to take the 75 gram glucose, dissolve it in about 300 ml of water, and she's supposed to take that, drink that over 10 minutes, and from finishing the load, when she has consumed the load over 10 minutes, 2 hours later, a blood sugar sample is drawn. It doesn't matter when she had her last meal. It is done irrespective of fasting status, irrespective of the last meal status. If the 2-hour blood sugar value, 2-hour blood sugar value is more than 140 milligram per deciliter, the diagnosis of GDM is made. So it's a very simplified version of all the international guidelines, right? So they just say that we go for a 75 gram oral GTT irrespective of fasting if after 2 hours blood sugar level is more than 140 milligram per deciliter, diagnosis of GDM is made and the treatment is started. So this is what the government of India promotes. All right, but it is also important to know the one-step screening method by WHO, which most of us are following in our tertiary care centers, and which we are also following with our OPD patients as well. So there's a one-step screening procedure also given by WHO, which says that whenever a pregnant woman comes to the OPD for a visit, irrespective of whether she comes in the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, whenever she comes, whenever a first visit is there, we should be screening her. And they have adopted the values that were given by the International Association of Diabetes in Pregnancy Study Group. The WHO has adopted the guidelines given by this study group, and again the WHO says that it is to be done fasting. That is the difference here. Please remember the difference. In DIPSI, the woman is not fasting, but when you use the WHO protocol, it is done fasting. 75 gram oral glucose tolerance test is done. The load is the same. The load is the same, that is 75 grams oral GTT, but it is supposed to be done fasting. So a fasting sample is drawn, 75 grams oral glucose dissolved in water is consumed over 10 minutes, and then blood samples are drawn after 1 hour and 2 hours. So you will have 3 values. You will have a fasting value, you will have a 1 hour value, and a 2 hour value of blood sugar. Okay, so if the fasting value is more than 92 milligram per deciliter, or the 1 hour value is more than 180 milligram per deciliter, or the 2 hour value is more than 153 milligram per deciliter, then the diagnosis of GDM is made. But if in the same test, you've done this test for a pregnant woman for screening, and if in the same test the fasting levels come out to be more than 126, more than or equal to 126 milligram per deciliter, or the 2 hour value comes out to be more than or equal to 200 milligram per deciliter. Now these are very deranged values. These are going into the abnormal sugar values which are seen even in the non-pregnant stage for diabetes. So if such deranged values are found, then she is labeled as overt diabetes, right? So if the fasting levels are more than 126 or equal to 126, 2 are more than or equal to 200 milligram per deciliter, this is after this glucose load, or the random plasma glucose comes out to be more than 200 milligram per deciliter, plus there are symptoms of diabetes, then the diagnosis of overt diabetes is made. So this is again a very simplified version given by WHO. They have not specified when to do this test, whether to do it at in the first visit, whether to do it in the 24 weeks or after that. So they have not specified that. What they've told is that this is the screening methodology, and based on their underlying baseline population risk, countries can adopt to do it at the first visit. Countries can also adopt to do it at 24 weeks. They can go for universal screening or selective screening. So that is left open by WHO. So what we do here is that we tend to screen all our pregnant women, right? We can follow the DIPSI guidelines which are there if the woman is not fasting, and if the woman is fasting, we rely on the screening protocol by WHO, and we rely on these values to diagnose either GDM or overt diabetes in pregnancy. Now let's see on a case-to-case basis. Let's see how these guidelines are utilized in making the diagnosis. So let's see here. There's a 30-year-old multiparous third gravida para to live 2 woman, obese, who is seen in the ANC OPD at 16 weeks for her First visit. In her last pregnancy, she gives history of prolonged and difficult vaginal delivery for a big baby. All right, so look at her history. She is right now 16 weeks pregnant, but her history is pointing out towards something, pointing out towards the increased risk of having diabetes in this pregnancy, because in the past she has had a prolonged and difficult vaginal delivery for a big baby. Even if this history weren't there in India, we would still go for the testing or screening for GDM in this woman. We would still test. But again, I would like to ask you this question. Do you screen now or you choose to screen at 24 weeks? We will screen right now. So we perform the 75-gram OGTT for screening for diabetes. Let's say we performed this. We chose to perform the 75-gram OGTT, and this is the report. The fasting came out to be 110. Now this is more than 92. The 1 hour came to be 170. The cutoff was 180. Right? The 2 hour came out to be 140. The cutoff was 153. So in here we find that only one value is deranged. Even one value deranged will make the diagnosis of GDM, gestational diabetes. So even if single value is deranged, just a single value is enough to make the diagnosis of gestational diabetes, right? So keep that in mind as well, right? So the fasting is 110, but it is not crossing the overt diabetic threshold, which is 126. So it is more than 92, but it is still less than 126. The diagnosis is gestational diabetes. Just one value is enough to make the diagnosis. Let us look at the next profile. The same women, we performed the 75-gram OGTT, but this time the report came out to be this. The fasting came out to be 140, so that is more than 126. The 1 hour is 180, that is fine. Okay, it's just at the threshold, but the 2 hour came out to be 200. It is more than 153. So even so, we see what happened here. The sugar levels, look at this, they are more than 126. The 2 hour is also 200, just there. So what is the diagnosis now? The sugar thresholds have crossed the thresholds of overt diabetes. The sugar values have crossed the thresholds of overt diabetes. So the diagnosis here is overt diabetes. So she will be labeled as likely to be overt diabetes. And very, very importantly, that this diagnosis of overt diabetes needs to be confirmed after delivery as well. So after 6 weeks postpartum, we can test her again. We will test her again with this OGTT, same OGTT, 75-gram OGTT, and we can reconfirm the diagnosis of overt diabetes, because if it is gestational diabetes, it will come back to normal. The sugar levels will come back to normal within 6 weeks postpartum. And if it is overt diabetes only, then it will be confirmed after 6 weeks postpartum, when the levels will remain abnormal. So right now, as of now, she will be labeled as overt diabetes. Now let's look at this clinical profile. There's a 28-year-old primi gravida who comes for her first ANC visit, but she is 10 weeks. She is obese. She has past history of polycystic ovarian disease. Both her parents are diabetic. Now for this particular woman with such high risk factors, I would like to screen for GDM or overt diabetes right now. So some screening for diabetes I will do right now straight away. So what test would I like to do to screen for diabetes in this woman? She is in the first trimester. Please note that in the first trimester, because of the associated nausea and vomiting in pregnancy, it really becomes difficult for the woman to consume that 75-gram glucose load dissolved in 300 ml over 10 minutes. She'll vomit it out. Most of the time that happens. And then we can rely on simpler methods also, which are suggested by the International Association guidelines. That is the IADPSG guidelines. These are according to the International Association for Diabetes in Pregnancy Study Group guidelines. So I'm just emphasizing on that because there are guidelines which are existing for such scenarios also. So in the first trimester, when we screen, we can do any of these tests. We can use any. We can use any of these tests like fasting blood glucose, fasting blood sugar, random blood sugar also we can use if she's not fasting at that point in time, and we can use the HbA1c also to screen. So let's say we decided to go for the fasting and for the HbA1c, and these are the reports. The fasting comes out to be 130 and the HbA1c comes out to be 8%. 10 weeks. Fasting deranged, HbA1c grossly deranged. That means now HbA1c reflects the glucose control over the past 3 weeks. That means that this woman must have had abnormal sugar levels in the periconceptional period. Now this woman I will label as overt diabetes in pregnancy, likely to be overt diabetes in pregnancy. So if the fasting blood sugar is more than 126 milligram per deciliter, or if the random blood glucose is more than 200 milligram per deciliter plus there are symptoms, or if the HbA1c is more than 6.5% in the first trimester, the diagnosis is made of overt diabetes. All right. Now let's talk about the scenario, same scenario again. In the same woman, we performed the screening for diabetes. She's 10 weeks, high risk, both parents diabetic. I decide to do some screening test now. And the report came out to be this. The fasting came out to be 160. Now this fasting is more than 92. The HbA1c came out to be 6%, which is normal. So when the fasting blood sugar is between 92 to 125, all right, when the fasting is between 92 to 125, the diagnosis is gestational diabetes because it has not crossed the threshold of 126. If this would have been more than 126 milligram per deciliter, then the diagnosis would have been overt diabetes mellitus. But since the fasting blood sugar levels are between 92 to 125, the diagnosis is gestational diabetes here in this clinical scenario. And lastly, again, the same woman, 10 weeks, obese, polycystic, both parents diabetes, high risk. I'm doing some test in the first trimester. I'm choosing to do fasting blood sugar and HbA1c. The fasting blood sugar is 90, HbA1c is 5.4%. Both are normal. Okay, fine. Do you repeat the testing in this woman? You did it in the first trimester, okay, but you still need to repeat it at 24 weeks. So you will again perform the 75 gram OGTT at 24 weeks. That is extremely, extremely important, right? So what do we conclude from all these screening tests? We conclude that all pregnant women in India should be screened for diabetes in pregnancy. We can use the DIPSI guidelines if the woman is in the non-fasting state, because then we just use the 75 gram oral glucose tolerance test and she did not be fasting for that, and we can use the cutoff value of 140 milligram per deciliter to make the diagnosis for GDM. If we use the WHO screening protocol, then the woman needs to be fasting in the status. So if you've taken the fasting levels into consideration, then we also give the 75 gram glucose tolerance test, and we perform the sugar testing after blood sugar testing after 1 hour and 2 hour, and then you use the thresholds to diagnose whether it is GDM, or if the overt thresholds are crossed, then we diagnose it as overt diabetes in pregnancy. So we can go by that route as well. And again, the third thing that I want to emphasize upon is that if we are seeing a woman in the first trimester, then also we should be screening for diabetes. And for that, in first trimester, we can choose either a fasting blood sugar or a random blood sugar sample also, and we can also use HbA1c to make the diagnosis of GDM or overt diabetes in pregnancy. The only distinction between the two is that in gestational diabetes, the sugar levels are deranged but not so much, and in the overt diabetes, the sugar levels are excessively deranged, and the cutoffs I have provided to you in the discussion of this video. So this is about the diagnosis of diabetes. For the next session tomorrow, I am going to be talking about the complications of diabetes in pregnancy and how is it managed in pregnancy. So complications and management of diabetes in pregnancy is what is going to be discussed next. And so keep watching out for that. You can subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. You can subscribe to the Unacademy platform using my code SHONALI Shonali and get a 10% discount on your subscription as well. Thank you so much.